love coach. Let's find out if you're ready for love. Here's your marvelous host, Nikki Lee.
Hello, and welcome to Ready for Love Radio. This is your host and love coach, Nikki Lee. Now, some of you may have heard of a profession called cuddling, or of a professional called a cuddlist. There's several different definitions and explanations, but I found a cuddlist. Actually, she has a different term for it. We're going to discuss that too. But I thought it'd be interesting to have her on the show and let her explain to you what it is, what she does, how she does it, how you become a cuddlist, and how it can benefit your relationship, and all of the interesting things about it. So, Jasmine, it's great to have you with me today.
Yes, hi, Nikki. Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
You know, I've been wanting to have a cuddlist on, and I love the term cuddlist. It feels like you're getting a hug.
Well, that's what they do. That's what cuddlists do.
I know. Cuddling didn't sound. I said I don't like that, but cuddlist, I like that. Like I said, it just sounds like a hug. So tell us a bit about how you got into this. How in the world did you get into being a cuddlist? And I'm going to let you explain more about what you call it and why and all that. But tell us a bit about the whole, how you got into this. Because I'm betting when you were a girl in elementary school, you didn't say, I'm going to be a cuddlist when I grow up.
No, I definitely didn't. I said I wanted to be an environmentalist when I grow up.
Okay.
You know, I spent 20 years in construction, from starting in college as a student assistant, working for the California EPA, since I was studying environmental science. And throughout my time in construction, I don't know if you've ever known anybody who has owned a construction company, but, I started there. You did? And by the time I ended, I had my own electrical contracting company. It was mine. I was a sole proprietor doing commercial work. So I was working in buildings down in D.C. a lot, working in malls, doing just all sorts of stuff. But the big thing is I didn't have enough support around me. I was trying to do it all. I also am a single mother of 3, and all of my family, I'm in D.C., but all of my family and a lot of my support system is in California, which is where I'm from.
Right.
When I was working, I had separated from my ex-husband, my children's father, and I was still trying to live a certain life that I was used to, and continuing to work as much as I was. I had a live-in nanny who was pretty much taking care of us here in the house, taking care of the kids, taking care of me, and pushing so hard, trying to still show up for my children, be the Cub Scout den mom, be the classroom parent, while running these large commercial projects. I was burning the candle at both ends. I was having anxiety attacks, sudden bouts of crying. I would want to turn off. I was drinking excessively, drinking alcohol, obviously. Yeah. And these were things that were happening to me, and I wasn't handling it. I had gone to therapy for about a year after my ex and I split, but then I kind of stopped and just threw myself into work. I was reading, this was probably in 2016, I was reading in an article in Huffington Post about professional cuddling. And I was like, what is this professional cuddling? And so I just started doing research because I was wondering what it was, and what I was reading from the cuddler's perspective of their experience, it just sounded really beautiful and something I wanted to try. So I hired a cuddler, and it was exactly that, a really beautiful loving, nurturing experience, and I started doing it myself. I think unbeknownst to me, although I wasn't directly trying to heal from my own traumas and the trauma of grieving the loss of my marriage and the family, how it was now split, but in some way I was helping other people. And in that sense, I was healing myself as I was learning. I was reading everything I could get my hands on about touch. There wasn't much out there in 2016, meaning there wasn't a lot of information about professional cuddling. There was a little bit of there's a few articles here and there. I found Dr. Tiffany Field out of the Miami, I believe. She's at the University of Miami, and reached out to her to see what information she had. The majority of her research is, yes, around mother-child touch and also massage touch. And so she sent me a few articles that she wrote, which were really helpful. But still, I was just so curious of what was happening. And I didn't know anybody. So the only people I ever told that I was doing this work was my partner at the time and my BFF. The two of them knew. Nobody else. I was still in the proverbial cuddle closet. Right. I eventually came across Cuddle Sanctuary's website as I was listing myself on cuddlecomfort.com. It's kind of like a community of cuddle enthusiasts and professional cuddlers. And so a lot of people will go there. They have forums. You can talk to other touch enthusiasts. But I came across Cuddle Sanctuary's website, Jean Fasbro, and I was reading up on it, and I saw that she had a 3-day intensive certification, cuddle certification, or professional cuddler certification. And so I reached out to her, and I asked for more information. And when I talked to her, I knew immediately that this was it. This person had the same perspective and the same view that I had. Now, by this time, it was 2018, so I'd already been doing this for a year and a half. There was a little bit of arrogance in me that thought, what's this person? What are these people going to teach me that I already don't know? But really what it was finding other people who were doing the work and feeling that camaraderie. There were people who had practices that were charging money to cuddle. There were people within the training program that just wanted to learn how to touch their family members, how to touch their ailing parents who were seniors, how to have a better understanding of touch for themselves. And so it was really a beautiful experience. I learned how to create the anatomy of a session from beginning, middle to end. I learned some really beautiful positions that I still use and implement in sessions. And so that was the start of it. And now, as soon as I got on the airplane, while we were waiting to take off, is when I put it out there on Facebook to tell my network and my friends and family that I am a professional cuddler. And I just had the most wonderful experience. And by the time I flew across the country and landed in D.C., I had a mix of responses, to say the least. There was a mix of responses, yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of like coming out as a love coach. You're a what?
Yeah. There was a lot of stop, what are you doing? Just stop this BS and go back to construction. But at the same time, people didn't know. They looked at me and they thought, she's doing it all. She's got it all. Look at her go. Mom running this construction company, a woman in a male-dominated industry, killing it. Right. Well, yeah, I was, but it came at a cost. And that was my well-being and my mental health.
Yeah. Well, and that was something that I had the issue with family too, because we did more home improvements, but in working in multi-million-dollar houses, and people never gave any consideration for what it was doing to me mentally and physically, And it's like you don't understand that when I left, I loved what I was doing when I left. You know, it was, I basically, any night when I knew I had to go to work the next day, I wasn't getting any sleep because I was like, I have to go to work tomorrow, you know. But then the nights when I knew I was off the next day and I was going to get to do the work I enjoyed the next, because I worked the days I was off, but doing work I enjoyed. You know, those nights I slept great. You know, I'm like, do we see a pattern? You know, of course they did. You know, but yeah, I totally understand.
And it's really interesting. It's you're right. I love construction. I often tell people I love commercial construction more than residential. It's more, I think it is a very sexy kind of industry. You're working with, and people laugh when I say that, but you're working with so many different types of companies and trades. You're not only working with, say, the plumber and the drywaller, but you're also working with the engineers and the architects and the general contractor. And everything is, you know, moving at such a pace and a schedule. You have to be on top of everything. And if you buy a large lighting package that you have to keep in a warehouse, you take on that risk of paying the bill and waiting to get paid maybe 90, 120 days later. So there's a lot of pressure and a lot of risk. And, you know, I continue. Pardon me?
There's a lot of coordinating, and there's a lot of deadlines, and you know, I enjoyed the negotiating and the, you know, you go in and you got to admit, being a woman, you did have an advantage over the guys, because when you needed something and they were out of something, and there's 8 guys behind you and they all need something, I got it. You know, if I went in to rent something and there was one of something, I mean, 9 times out of 10, I got it, you know, and all I had to do was ask, you know. So, I mean, my brother just knew. He didn't even get on the phone to ask for it. I just did, because I got it.
You did.
It was that simple. Yeah. You know, and then he realized that when I left, he had to try again, and 9 times out of 10, he didn't get it, you know. But, you know, that's okay. You know?
Yeah. Right. I'll just send you.
You learn to appreciate it after it wasn't there anymore, you know. But, you know, but it was fun negotiating for things and working out things and figuring out ways to make things work and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I enjoy that. And taking the pile of materials and seeing it sit there and be delivered, and then coming back and it's done, you know, and you went through from a pile of stuff to a building, or, you know, a newly renovated kitchen, or whatever it is. I love that, you know.
Yes,
but
it was very exciting. It's very different than what you do now and what I do now. I mean, we're talking left and right brains. Completely different.
Definitely. Yeah. I don't miss over guys on Monday morning. Don't miss that at all. You know.
Yeah. Yep.
But
essentially that's. Sorry, go ahead.
I tell you what I did though. Instead of paying them on Friday, I paid them on Monday afternoon. And if they didn't show up for work on Monday, they didn't get paid on Monday. So
that's one way to do it.
That resolved that problem.
Yeah.
But but we could definitely trade construction stories all day. So But now there are. I want to get this out of the way now, because I know some people listening have heard the misconceptions about cuddling and Cuddlist. Are there a few that we can just kind of get out of the way so we get that done, so we can get on to the fun part of the conversations?
Between cuddling and Cuddlist? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, there's some misconceptions because there are people claiming to be cuddlers that are doing it with, shall we say, that aren't qualified, that don't know what they're doing.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so Cuddlist is a company that certifies. They have an online, go-at-your-own-pace theoretical certification process. And it's really great. I usually tell anybody who wants to become a cuddler to first, before they jump into charging people to hug, go to Cuddlist, take their online certification program, because it will really help them start to think about what their boundaries are, what it means to give and ask for consent, the different types of boundaries. Cuddlist offers a Club Cuddlist, which is their Facebook group. You have to have gone through the certification to, I believe, to be, to be listed on their website, because they do list all of their clients that certify, or I don't know what they call them, I guess they're Cuddlists that go through their certification. They'll list them on their website. And you also get access to their Club Cuddlist, which is a great support system where you can go into this Facebook group, and just if you're presented with a difficult situation or you don't know how much to charge or whatever it might be, you can go in there and ask the question, and other people, it's like a group forum, and other people will chime in. So Cuddlist is a great, great place to start. I believe that it is very important whenever you do any kind of body work or somatic work that it should, and at all when possible, be done in person. So you can actually get your hands on somebody, which is what I did with the Cuddlist, or the Cuddler, what was it? With Gene Fazbro's Cuddle Sanctuary. So I think it was on the last day they brought in clients for us to have a session with, a 1-hour session. And so that was great. But I usually tell people there's also, I think, Sam Hess. Now, I could be wrong on this, but I believe Sam Hess might have an in-person. I don't know if they're still doing it or if they closed because of COVID. But I know they did have a certification, an in-person certification. Jean Fazbro with Cuddle Sanctuary obviously has her certification. And then I'm releasing my certification in person. It's actually a hybrid of virtual and live virtual and in person, 100-hour course, which I think is really setting people up for success. One, because they're going to learn about all the theoretical stuff, objective or rigid boundaries, subjective, flexible boundaries, the anatomy of a session, holding space, everything that goes along with it, and then also the business side. Because nobody who's getting certified as a cuddler is going to go get hired by somebody. You essentially are going to be an entrepreneur. Right. You're going to be a business owner. And so you have to learn how to be a business owner, how to market yourself, how to network, how to develop relationships with therapists or doctors or, life coaches, love coaches like yourself. Right. And so that's a big portion that I think is missed on a lot of the massage therapy schools and, hypnosis therapy schools, and any of those, that they miss teaching people how to run a business. And so that's one thing that I'm making sure I add. But essentially, a professional cuddler is someone who charges money or barters to cuddle another person. And so you can be on one of these websites, such as Cuddle Comfort. I think there's another one called Cuddle Companions. There was Cuddle Connect, but they've closed down since the pandemic. And you can go on there and sell your services to cuddle people. Then you can also be on the platforms like Cuddlist and Cuddle Sanctuary, where they certify you, and then you can be on their website, and they'll promote you that way. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, why is cuddling important? And not to be divisive, but why is it important to women and why is it important to men? And that question actually came from a listener.
That is really important. That's a really great question, actually. So cuddling is so specific. As you know, I use the term Platonic Touch
Yes.
because of the association. Cuddling can turn a lot of people off. Let me rephrase this. The word cuddle can turn people off who aren't already open to it. So as far as any kind of networking or marketing I do, I have found that even when I'm doing speaking engagements at different facilities or at schools and classes, using the word platonic touch makes it more digestible for people. Because when we say the word cuddle, for most people, it's either a prelude or a postlude to sex, right? And that's how their association is with cuddling. It's you cuddle after you have sex, or maybe heavy petting and cuddling. And so I remove that. I think touch, two-way touch, is what's incredibly important. Now, we spoke briefly about how the majority of my clientele, I would say 90%, are men and 10% are women. I couldn't tell you. I have my guesses, my assumptions on why there are more men who come for these services than women. And one is that men don't get touch, or there's not a safe space where they can ask to be held and nurtured without being judged for it. And I've said that a lot of my female friends, when I talk about it, they say they could never do this because they would be assaulted in some way. And I think there might be something to that. The perspective that women have around touch. We're perpetually grabbed at. When I was in high school, guys would always slap my butt, and I hated it. And of course, I would vocalize that, and I became, I don't know if I can say bad words, but, a B word.
You can.
I can. I would suddenly get the label of being a bitch or being uptight. But still, there are a lot of, even now I have friends, there are a lot of people that are, or women who are touched and they don't say anything because they don't want that to be called uptight or, full of themselves, or be labeled as negative for not wanting that kind of touch. And I think there's some there's some maybe trauma from that for a lot of women.
Well,
what are your thoughts?
I think men don't grasp that we don't want to be grabbed at,
Mm-hmm.
That's not an appealing touch, And, so many people, there are different sorts of touch, and some are so much more enjoyable and appealing than other touches. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, but, we don't learn that. We don't learn the sort of touch people enjoy, and I think that's just one of the many, 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 many things that we don't learn about relationships. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It'd be nice to yes. And it would certainly help.
Yes. Yeah, it would. One of the things, learning about touch, positive touch, one of the things that I typically ask my clients are, what's their touch history? I used to say, what's your association with touch? But I've learned to kind of narrow it down. Actually, I've worked with David Palmer, who is the father of the chair massage, and he's my mentor as well. And he's been doing massage since the late 70s is when he first started. And so to see, from his perspective, to see the professional touch movement as it's now going into professional cuddling and other types of touch. I usually ask people what their influences are. Culturally, I'm Mexican. My mother's from Mexico. And so growing up, we're a very affectionate people. She was always loving us and, putting her hands through our hair and just kind of touching us. It was always really positive and loving, nurturing. Genetic, how we experience touch, larger hand to a smaller hand. The receptors within our fingers are, the bigger your hand is, the further apart the receptors are. Also familial, how was your family? How did you touch within the family? Was it taboo? Like my ex-husband's family, they were not a very touchy-feely people. And I think that's just how his family was. And then individually, their individual experience, like I said, in high school, guys would smack my bottom. That was my individual experience. And so as I go through this list and I ask clients, what consider these experiences that you've had around touch, and can you talk to me about them? It's usually really helpful for them to start understanding or really considering how touch has influenced their life and the exposure to touch that they've had. So positive touch, negative touch, taboo touch.
Right. Well, and even things that they were told was taboo that they may not associate consciously as being an issue. We've just went through a whole lot of that working with Susan on the book, because we've got an entire chapter in here about touch, and it impacts you in a lot of ways, and you don't really think about it until you sit down and talk to somebody in an intake like you're talking about, and like, oh yeah, wait a minute, But the funny thing is we each just have ways that we think about touch, and in a relationship or even dating, when we use that sort of touch with a partner, and it may not be the kind of touch that they're used to or the kind of touch that they enjoy, and it may never be talked about, right? So is that something that you talk to clients about?
Yeah, we definitely talk about the different types of touch, yeah.
Okay, what sorts of touch do you talk about?
It really depends. It really depends on their experiences. So let me give you an example. Because I'm in DC, I see a lot of military and law enforcement. I have a lot of clients who come in who've done the 4 tours in Afghanistan, and now they work either as police officers or detectives, or for one of the agencies, one of the federal agencies. Exactly. And some of them come in with PTSD, obviously, right, or their nervous system is jacked way up. Before we start a session, I lead them through a body scan meditation. Some of the clients, you can see that their shoulders are up by their ears. Some clients will start to cry during that body scan, and some say, no, I can't do this. Once I just start, because they can't be left alone in their thoughts by themselves. There always has to be something pulling them away from their thoughts. And so in that sense, we'll get up and move around. But a lot of these clients who come in, they cannot touch. It doesn't feel safe to touch. And so before we do that, before we touch, I'm a fairly tall person. I'm 5'11", 180 pounds. And so I have a tendency, if I stand up, people can feel as if I'm looming over them. And so to take that away, what did you say?
I get that. I'm 6'1".
So. You're 6'1", okay, so yeah. You totally get it. And so I'll sit down on the floor to take that kind of intimidation away. And so from there, from sitting on the floor, we'll talk. We'll talk about easy stuff, not too deep around touch. What's going on with them energetically or emotionally or mentally. Some people will talk about relationships. It can be a slow progression to get to the discussion about what kind of touch that you like. When was the last time you had somebody run their fingers up and down your arm? Sometimes, and again, this is one of the reasons that I removed the word cuddle from it, because that can be intimidating itself, certain expectations, and sometimes we'll stretch. I will do assisted stretch or partner yoga to start the touching process. Sometimes we'll just hold hands, or someone might lay their head in my lap, and that's the extent of what they can do. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay. Well, and all this kind of stuff, especially body work, is so individualized. You've got to be aware of what each person needs and can tolerate.
Mm-hmm.
What am I trying to say? What's appropriate for them, and especially at the various stages of working with them.
Mm-hmm.
So, interesting.
And it's really interesting that you say that about body work. I had a friend say, well, with massage, because they're a massage therapist, they said, well, with massage, it's different. We have to work more around boundaries than you probably do with your cuddling. And I was like, oh, actually, not so much. I have been getting massages regularly. I'm 41. My mother started taking us when we were young to get professional massages in the 90s. When I was, I got my first one when I was like 14 or 15, because she likes getting massages, and so she would take us with her. Throughout all of my decades of getting massages, I never had anybody ever talk to me about boundaries, about consent. It was always very clinical. Where are you hurting right now? Is there anywhere sensitive? Nobody ever asked. Of course, they'd say, take your clothes off as far as you're comfortable with. I remember when I was probably 15 or 16, I left my bra on, and the massage therapist came in, and they said, it's okay if you want to keep your bra on, but you should probably take it off so I can really glide across your back. There was no discussion about the boundary of why did you keep it on? And, let's talk about you feeling more comfortable, because they want to get you in and get you out for the next person. Whereas this work, when you're doing Platonic Touch, you have to stop and ask that question. Well, I try to stay away from the why. Why do you do this? Because that could bring up shame. But more of, what are your feelings about this? Or if someone's like, I'll get a lot of, I don't know. Okay, where do you feel it in your body? Do you notice any energy or anything within your body? I had one client, again, another military client, who I'll often offer, like on the first or second session, I'll say, why don't we start with a 5-minute hug? We're just standing and hugging, and most people are comfortable hugging. Most people hug their relatives for the most part. I don't want to use everybody or always, but I think we are a huggy culture. Just a quick, oh, hi, how you doing? And so that's usually a good place to start with some clients. But I had one client who went in, hugged, and literally threw his hands up after, maybe 2 seconds, and said, I can't do this. This is too much. I can't do this. And I said, okay, why don't we have a seat? Why don't you go ahead? You can sit down if you feel like. I'm going to sit down on the floor, and let's just talk. And so I try to change my body language to relax the space a bit. Again, get down on the floor. I'll start stretching. It shows if I'm relaxed and comfortable, then they can get relaxed and comfortable until they're ready to move on if they want, but they definitely don't have to. And so there is a lot of discussion about what's happening in your body right now. What's going on? What are your thoughts? How are you feeling? Yeah. Not why don't you want to hug, because that could bring up shame.
One thing, another reason I wanted to do the show is one of the things I think that's been driven home to me working with Susan the last couple of years on this book is there are so many things like this that it seems the general public doesn't realize what so many people are struggling with. So many just take for granted the ability to walk up and hug somebody, Yeah. Or that, walking up and touching somebody isn't an issue. But for a lot of people it is. The ability to be comfortable hugging somebody, that is an issue for people. There are people that is something they can't just walk up and do. you know, and there are very good reasons for it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
What was it? There was this awesome meme that said, and I don't say that very often. If we spent, we spend so much time teaching people. Oh crud! I'm not going to remember, and I should have saved it. I've got it saved somewhere. Teaching people with like disabilities how to interact with other people, and if we taught the general public how to interact with people with disabilities, think how much better the world would be. Stop trying to teach the minority to interact and teach the masses how to be more compassionate, more empathetic, that kind of thing,
Yeah,
I
absolutely agree with that.
Turn it around,
Right.
Stop judging. Stop being jerks. That kind of thing.
Right.
Understand
and
that our normal isn't everybody's normal, and be more understanding with people, kind of thing. But I knew you'd get what I was stumbling over so badly.
Just bringing awareness. That was another thing. So, in my journey, I'm a perpetual student. I will be learning the rest of my life, especially that we, as in the sciences, what we're learning about psychology and neurology is just so vast as we try to create even AI. They're learning so much more about how our brain works with the attempt of creating, the perfect learning AI. And so that's kind of spawned this wave of research around the brain and connections. Anyway, I wanted to be just what you said. I wanted to be educated. I wanted to meet my clients where they were and not just expect them to know what they're comfortable with. And so because of that, I took courses. I took some certifications to help me better understand mental health. I'm actually looking for them right now, the name. So I took the Mental Health First Aid certification, which was, I think, a 3-day certification, 8-hour program. 8 hours each day in D.C. I took another Applied Suicide Intervention Skills Training certification, and that one was pretty amazing. Again, I think it was a week long at the VA in D.C., and almost immediately after getting certified, I had learned that, one, it was okay to say, are you having suicidal ideations? That's not going to trigger someone to think, I wasn't, but now that you mentioned it, I think I am. You know what I mean? That was always what I was afraid of. But almost immediately, I was able to utilize that training with one of my clients during a consultation. Or maybe it was a virtual. They couldn't meet me, and so we were on virtual, and I had to ask them. I could see it in their face if they were having suicidal ideations, and they sat there and had to really think about it. I was like, okay. But, another great certification that I took that was really the most helpful was Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP certification. I took the regular certification and then took the master certification, and that has helped me extensively be able to really read people in the moment, whether we're virtual or in person. Watch their body language, their eye movement, the way that the words that they use to describe the world around them or their experiences, I think has helped probably the most in what I do, to really showing up for my clients where they are. And then, of course, a mindfulness practice, being very mindful, creating awareness around myself as well.
Awesome. I've got an NLP course that I bought. I haven't had time to do it yet, but good to know that. Good to know that. I'll move that up to one of my ones I'm going to do sooner rather than later. But, one of the interesting things when we were working on the touch chapter that I had never thought about was that's the one sense that we have, like hearing, vision, all that kind of thing, that doesn't lessen as we get older. It's at its peak when we're born and at its peak when we die. I found that really interesting because you know how...
It's at its peak when we're born and at its peak when we die. Interesting.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Because you know how some of our senses kind of develop after we're born and they kind of lessen as we get older? Our touch is not like that.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting.
I learned that from Susan when we were working on the book. But I thought that was interesting. I'm like, I'd never thought about that before. But
yeah, I would have thought that. I guess it depends on where you're feeling touch, right? Because in certain areas of your body, it's more sensitive than others.
Well, yeah.
As your hands age, right? As we age, our hands, the skin grows thicker. Are we still able to experience touch as we did when we were younger? With
you have calluses,
probably softer.
But
touch on our shoulder to touch on our face or on our lips is different. Yeah, that's very interesting.
But I just thought you might find that interesting. She can of course give you more detail on it, but that was the basic gist of it. So.
Well, as soon as the book comes out, I'll be able to read it.
That's true too. So I might even can get you a review copy. Who knows?
Ooh.
I do have those. So of course you will have to give me a review for that. So
absolutely. Yeah.
So how can, I don't think I included this, but how can cuddling help relationships? Yeah. Because
that is an excellent question.
So that came from a listener too. How about the same listener actually? How about that?
Yeah, so touch in general, cuddling is such a beautiful experience, a beautiful feeling to share with somebody. I still cuddle with my children. So maybe not the 16-year-old. That is, whenever cuddling with teenagers, it's always on their terms when they're ready to, right? You can't make them. Like you do maybe with a baby when you kind of hold them and love them. And so my 16-year-old, not as much, but my 13 and 10-year-old, they still come in for, we have a little shorthand. We usually put our hands out, our arms out, and go huggy, and that's our cue to hold and love, and of course with consent, right? My youngest is always wants to cuddle. He leaves time in the morning before school, so we have time to cuddle on the couch and just talk. But it's the same thing goes for couples. For anybody you can share that experience with. Dr. Betty Martin has really honed the 3-minute game. It was created by, I believe, one of her colleagues. But she's created this game, which I do with my clients, and people can do with their partners and relationships, where you look at the wheel of consent, and there is the way that I, Jasmine, want to touch you, Nikki, and the way that I want you, Nikki, to touch me, Jasmine. And then it's the other direction, the way that you want me to touch you and the way that you want to touch me. And through this, using consent and negotiating and asking, Nikki, if I were to say, Nikki, I'd really like to run my hands through your hair. And you would consider, is that a pleasurable experience? Have you experienced it before, and did you like it? Do you not like your hair being touched? Do you want to give it a shot and see? Do you know that you don't like it, and so maybe you'll offer, instead of running your hands through my hair, I'd rather you run your fingers up and down my arm, the inside of my arm, something like that. And so this is something, and we would do that for 3 minutes. This is something that people can do with each other. And you can learn so much about your partner, the type of touch that they like. even giving them the opportunity to consider what kind of touch they would like. Because like I said, you ask somebody, what kind of touch do you enjoy? I don't know. I've never been asked that. It's like, yeah, you're right. We're not taught that. We're not asked that. We're just, most people say, yeah, you can touch me this way because I want to be nice, and I guess I should.
Right.
I should let you. It's something that would definitely bring two partners closer together. And in fact, I have had clients who are dating, and on the second or third date, they'll offer to do a cuddle session with their date based off of their experience with me. So using, rigid and flexible boundaries, using the two models of consent. I don't know if I mentioned them, but there's the ask and wait and the blanket yes, which are the two models that I use in session. And so they use that. Also, they make the agreement, which is what I learned from Cuddlist. If at any point you become physically, emotionally, or mentally uncomfortable, you speak up and let me know, as none of us are mind readers. So communication is incredibly important. And, I thought that was just such a beautiful thing for my clients to take and offer to their dates. And then also removing the expectation of sex. Getting that completely off the table. And let's just sit here and learn each other and learn about touch and the kind of touch that we like. And again, that goes for a married couple or two partners or whatever. You remove the expectation of sex and you make it just platonic touch, just sensual touch, not even going around any sexual areas or, that are typically sexual areas.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, there's so many awesome places to touch on the body, even avoiding genital areas. There's all kinds of awesome places to touch. So it's, well, and the thing is, if your partner asks you, they may come up with places that you never thought about. And you can be like, ooh, that could be nice. So.
Well, now I have to ask you, Nikki, where's your favorite place to be touched? Where do you ask your partner or friends to touch you?
Well, that kind of depends on the mood I'm in. But, yeah, that completely depends on the mood. But I will tell you that one of all the books I've written, one of the ones that has sold the best over the years is a short little book that I wrote about kissing from head to toe. And every place that I included in there, I skipped the genital areas purposely. And it just, lots of different places, and actually places that a lot of people have never thought of. And because some people looked at that and they're laughing about places. I'm like, try it. I'm just telling you, try it.
In between the toes?
Oh yeah. Well, and there's actually instructions for leg and foot massages in there too. So, but yeah, it's but like I said, I skipped genital areas for a reason in that book. So. But and I think it's less than like 20 pages, even with the massage stuff in there. But
and what's the name of the book?
Kissing from Head to Toe.
Kissing from. I'm gonna have to get that.
And I even said you can rub, massage, or kiss any of these areas, and you will enjoy. And I will actually put a link on the show page. So.
Oh, perfect.
But. Yeah, it's lots of interest. It was very fun to write that book. So.
Yeah, I bet.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was, but it was interesting. I just got the idea for it. That would be a lot of fun to put together. But
yeah, it sounds wonderful.
But like I said, in just lots of different spots, and I said, let's just put that all together. Put that all together and that book actually paid my mortgage quite a few months.
That's awesome.
I think it's like $3 or $4. So yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. But like I said, there's so many interesting places to touch, and massage and kiss and just But exploring your partner can be a lot of fun. So, and they can start by cuddling and go from there.
Yep.
So now I asked a friend of mine for a question, and this was not what I was expecting from this person, but this is interesting. What about intimate songs, which would go very well with cuddling?
Intimate songs.
Yeah.
Could you give me an example?
Well, this idea was suggestions of intimate songs. Because, I mean, we all know sexy songs, but intimate songs, that's a breed all of its own. So I was thinking, I mean, let's get it on. That's more sexy, but, I mean,
I am a fan of Melody Gardot. She is a jazz singer, I believe from Montreal. She has a beautiful voice. Typically, when I'm in session with clients, I usually have spa-like music on. So instrumental kind of sounds of water or, classical or something. And usually people don't ask for anything. I give them the option to make if they have any song requests or music genres requests, then usually they're like, no, this is good. Hearing the different sounds. And
I like that kind of atmospheric is what I always call it. But
yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out what to call it, because I actually, when I'm working, especially when I'm working on writing, I usually have Amazon Music Cool Jazz on. Actually, I have it on right now. It's just turned on while we're recording. I want some of those kind of atmospheric kind of things to listen to too. I haven't found the channel yet on Amazon Music yet.
Well, I am definitely going to look for intimate songs.
Okay, so Platonic Touch Therapy. I like the name that you put, because I think you kind of set up borders or boundaries with that, which could be good. And I think for some clients, that's going to give them some peace of mind, kind of right up front, which is good too.
Yeah.
So tell us about the training course that you're doing.
Yeah. So I had such a wonderful experience with the Cuddle Sanctuary training. Like I said, it was really beautiful. However, what I really enjoyed was the camaraderie. That was what I really enjoyed. But as I've grown my own practice and have started or have perpetually educating myself and learning more about, holding space, intimacy, learning about touch, and learning how to connect with people, how to create a safe space, I wanted to create a really robust certification also. All of the certifications out there now are Cuddle certifications, and so I've had requests from people wanting to get certified but don't want to be a Cuddle certified practitioner. And just with my own experience, I've recognized that using Platonic Touch has been more effective in meeting people where they are and not making them swallow the word cuddle and say, well, this is what you need and this is how you have to see it. I want to take that association out of it so they can more focus on the healing aspect. So I created a 100-hour certified Platonic Touch practitioner course and to teach people how to provide loving acceptance, human connection through mutual positive touch, two-way touch. This is something that I think is needed to help all types of people, all different types of healers more so. So like I had mentioned, it's a hybrid of both live virtual sessions, classes, and in person. The first phase, it's broken up into 3 phases. The first phase is the theoretical practitioner module. And so there's about 20 modules within that phase 1, or that first phase, that will help people understand the science of touch, how to conduct a Platonic touch session safely and effectively, clarity around boundaries and consent and holding space, and how to show up for themselves as a practitioner and for the clients, to help them conceptualize and understand what their own history of touch is, so they can essentially help their client to understand what is their understanding of touch. The phase 2 is going to be creating a viable practice module, and within that, there's going to be 14 modules, and this is going to assist people in gaining clarity around their vision of and goals of what they want their business to be. It'll cover topics such as formulas for setting fees, record keeping, tracking hours and expenses, setting up an office, automation, marketing, branding, collaborations, even things like this, getting on podcasts and talking about it. One thing that I've always taken or understood, that I am a spokesperson for this industry. We all are. Everyone who's doing this work. And so we need to get out there and really tell people that this is a healing modality that is accessible, because a lot of people still don't know about professional cuddling or platonic touch. They just don't know. And then there's phase 3, and this is the experiential training module. This is the part that's in person, and it is 40 hours. There are 4 modules that will be taught in person in Maryland, with learning about, one, themselves, right? Because it providing the opportunity to put what they've learned over the virtual weeks to practical situations. So I will also help people have sessions with clients. So they'll practice that. They'll experience that of working with other people who are doing this work, who are already, providing touch or providing healing, whether people are massage therapists or psychotherapists or coaches. They can use this to help their clients more. So,
awesome. Tell you what, we're just about out of time. You want to give your website?
Yeah. You can find all the information at www.tanjewellness.com, and that's T as in Tom, ANGE wellness.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being with me today and sharing the information. There will be a replay of the show and Jasmine's information if you go to my website, www.lovecoachjourney.com/cuddle. Like I said, I appreciate you being here very much. And listeners, I will be with you next time on Ready for Love Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. This was wonderful.